What would you do if your own parents abandoned your child while you were in the hospital? Emily Harper's world was turned upside down when her in-laws left her 10-year-old daughter, Lily, alone at home to attend a party. With her gallbladder surgery still fresh, Emily was paralyzed by the betrayal. Her child was scared, and her in-laws had chosen a family party over Lily's safety. Stay tuned to see how Emily takes control and fights back. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories. "You're not going to leave her alone!" I shouted into the phone, my voice cracking with panic. My heart hammered in my chest, beating so fast I could barely catch my breath. The hospital room suddenly felt suffocating, the walls pressing in as I listened to my daughter Lily's terrified voice. Just moments earlier, I had heard her sobbing through the phone. "Mommy, Grandma and Grandpa just drove away. I'm here alone. They said they're going to Uncle Kevin's party and that I'm old enough to stay by myself. I'm scared." My name is Emily Harper, or Tina to everyone who knows me. I'm 36 years old, a widow raising my 10-year-old daughter after my husband David was killed in a car accident 3 years ago. Since then, Lily's struggled with anxiety waking up from nightmares, fearing something might happen to me too. And now, my in-laws had confirmed her worst fear by abandoning her when she needed protection the most. "Tina, you're overreacting," my father-in-law Robert snapped through the phone. "She needs to toughen up. She's not a baby anymore. We'll be back in a few hours." "A few hours?" I nearly screamed. "She's 10. It's illegal to leave a child that age alone. Get back to my house right now." "We're already halfway to Kevin's," my mother-in-law Patricia added, her tone casual. "It's his 60th birthday and the whole family will be there. Lily was invited too, but she didn't want to come. That's her choice." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. There I was, stuck in the hospital after emergency gallbladder surgery, unable to leave, while they abandoned my child, their only granddaughter, because a party was more important. "I'm calling Susan right now to check on Lily," I said, barely containing my rage. "And when I get out of here tomorrow, you will never have unsupervised access to my daughter again." "Oh, Tina, you're being dramatic as usual," Patricia responded dismissively. "David would have understood. You're the one making her soft." Using David against me was the final straw. I felt a cold rage building inside me. "This conversation is over. Stay away from my house." I slammed the phone down and immediately called Susan, my neighbor across the street. Thank God she picked up right away and promised to check on Lily. As I hung up, trembling with anger and fear, I knew this was just the beginning. Something felt horribly wrong in my chest, not from the surgery, but from this deep, unforgivable betrayal by the very people who were supposed to protect my daughter. David's parents had always undermined my parenting, but this crossed a line I couldn't ignore. Growing up without consistent guidance, I had promised myself I would be different with my own family. David and I had met in college. He was studying engineering while I pursued education. We had Lily when I was 26, and we were blissfully happy, building our lives together. But Patricia and Robert never truly approved of me. They thought their son had married beneath him, making subtle jabs about my housekeeping and my parenting style. David always stood up for me, acting as the buffer between us. But after he died, that thin shield disappeared. The tension between us had been building for years, and every family gathering had become a battlefield of passive-aggressive comments and unsolicited advice. But this was different. This was a betrayal I couldn't ignore, a line crossed that would never be undone. "She's too attached to you, Tina," Patricia would say while Lily clung to my leg. "David was never like that with me." "That's because we taught him independence early," Robert would add. "You're making her weak." I tried to maintain a relationship between them and Lily despite these challenges. They were her only connection to her father, and I believed having grandparents in her life was important, so I swallowed my pride, nodded along to their critiques, and kept the peace for Lily's sake. 3 days ago, I woke up with excruciating abdominal pain. After rushing to the ER, doctors diagnosed me with acute colitis. My gallbladder needed to come out immediately. Panicked about Lily, I called everyone I knew, but my closest friends were out of town, and Susan could only help part-time due to her work schedule. In desperation, I called Patricia and Robert. They agreed to stay at our house for the 3 days I'd be hospitalized, seemingly happy to help. Relief washed over me as I went into surgery, believing Lily would be cared for. I even felt guilty for my years of keeping them at arm's length. See, Tina, family is what matters in a crisis, Patricia had said while packing an overnight bag for my hospital stay. We may have our differences, but we're here when it counts. I believed her. I trusted them with the most precious person in my world. Yesterday, I had called to check in and everything seemed fine. Lily sounded a bit quiet, but I assumed it was just her missing me. There was no hint that today they would decide my daughter, their granddaughter, was an inconvenience they could abandon for a party. Now, as I waited for Susan to call back, I realized this wasn't just a one-time lapse in judgment. This was who they truly were, and I had been blind to the danger. Susan called back 10 minutes later. "I'm with Lily now," she reassured me. "She's upset, but okay. I've brought her to my house and she's having cookies with my son. I can keep her until you're discharged tomorrow." Relief flooded through me. "Susan, I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me," she said firmly. "What they did was child abandonment. Tina, you need to report this." I hesitated. "They're her grandparents, David's parents. And they left a 10-year-old child alone in a house for a party." Susan's voice hardened. "You had emergency surgery. What if there had been complications? What if you couldn't come home tomorrow?" She was right. The reality of what could have happened hit me like a physical blow. What if there had been a fire? What if Lily had been injured? What if someone had broken in? That evening, I made a difficult call to Child Protective Services from my hospital bed. The social worker's voice was kind but serious as she took down my statement. She explained this wasn't just a family disagreement, it was a clear case of child endangerment. "We'll need to investigate and document this incident," she explained. Abandoning a child that age is considered neglect under state law. As I hung up, my phone immediately rang again. It was Robert. "What the hell, Tina? We just got a call from some government agency saying they need to interview us about Lily. What did you tell them?" "The truth," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. "That you abandoned my daughter to go to a party while I was in the hospital. It was a family gathering, not some wild party, and she was perfectly safe." "She was terrified, Robert. She's been having anxiety since her father, your son, died and you left her alone." "This is ridiculous," he shouted. "We're her grandparents. We have rights." Something in me snapped. "Rights? You think leaving a child alone gives you rights? You have responsibilities, Robert, which you completely abandoned, just like you abandoned Lily." "Patricia's crying because of what you've done," he said, trying to make me feel guilty. "After everything we've done for you." "What exactly have you done besides criticize and undermine me since David died?" My voice was shaking now, but with anger rather than fear. "Tell Patricia I'm sorry she's upset, but I'm more concerned about my traumatized daughter. I'll be home tomorrow and I don't want either of you at my house." "You can't keep us from seeing Lily," he thundered. "Watch me," I replied and hung up. That night, my hospital room felt cold and hollow. I stared at the ceiling, second-guessing myself, wondering if I'd overreacted. But each time I closed my eyes, I heard Lily's trembling voice in my head. "Mommy, I'm here alone." No, I hadn't overreacted. If anything, I'd been too tolerant for too long. The hospital discharged me the next morning. Susan picked me up, and as we drove, she told me about Lily's night. "She had trouble sleeping," Susan said quietly. "Kept asking if you were really coming home today." My heart twisted. "Did she say anything else about what happened?" Susan hesitated before answering. "She mentioned this wasn't the first time they left her alone." The words hit me like a slap. I nearly choked. "What?" "Apparently, they went grocery shopping yesterday and left her home for about an hour. She didn't call you because they told her not to bother you while you were recovering." White, hot rage burned through me. They had abandoned my daughter twice and manipulated her into staying quiet about it. When we got to Susan's house, Lily ran straight to me, wrapping herself around me like she did after David died. "Mommy, you're back!" she sobbed into my shoulder. "I'm here, sweetie," I whispered, fighting through the pain of my surgical incision to hold her close. I'm so sorry about what happened. Later, after I'd settled back into our home, I changed the codes on the electronic locks. My body still ached from surgery, but my determination to protect my daughter pushed me forward. I called a locksmith to change the physical locks as well. Lily watched, wide-eyed. "Are Grandma and Grandpa coming back?" she asked quietly. I sat beside her on the couch, choosing my words carefully. "Not for a while, honey. What they did was wrong and dangerous." "They said I was being a baby," Lily whispered. "Grandpa said Daddy wouldn't be proud of me being so scared." Fury surged in my chest. Using David against our daughter was unforgivable. "Your daddy would be incredibly proud of you," I said firmly. "You were brave to call me when you felt unsafe. That was exactly the right thing to do." By evening, my phone was buzzing relentlessly with texts and calls from Robert, Patricia, and even David's brother Kevin. I finally answered Kevin's call. "Tina, you need to calm down," he started. "Mom and Dad are beside themselves. They're saying you reported them to child services and changed the locks." "They abandoned my daughter, Kevin. Twice!" My voice was cold as ice. "They left a 10-year-old alone to attend your birthday party. Look, they made a mistake." "A mistake?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "A mistake is forgetting to pick someone up from soccer practice. Deliberately leaving a child alone after being trusted with her care is a choice. They're family, Tina, Lily's grandparents. Being family doesn't give them the right to endanger my child," I shot back. "Would you leave your kids alone at that age?" His silence spoke volumes. "That's what I thought," I said. "I've filed a formal report, and yes, I've changed the locks. They're not welcome in my home until they acknowledge what they did and take steps to earn back my trust." After hanging up, I found 3 voicemails from Patricia, each one more hostile than the last. "Tina, this is absurd. Robert and I have never done anything but love Lily," the first one began. "You're turning our granddaughter against us. David would be horrified by your behavior," the second one said. And the third left just minutes ago. "We're consulting with a lawyer about grandparents' rights. You can't keep us from seeing Lily. You've gone too far this time." I deleted them all, my hands shaking. I knew the threat about grandparents' rights might not be an empty one. They had the resources to fight it. But I also had documentation of their neglect, and protecting Lily was worth whatever battle lay ahead. As I tucked Lily into bed that night, she looked up at me with teary eyes. "Am I in trouble with Grandma and Grandpa?" "No, sweetheart," I assured her, kissing her forehead. "They're the ones who made a bad choice, not you. You're safe now." But as I kissed her goodnight, I wondered if any of us were truly safe from what was coming next. The next morning, I received an email from CPS confirming they had opened an investigation. The social worker, Miss Patterson, would be interviewing all parties involved, starting with a home visit that afternoon. The email also included resources about child safety and family counseling. I was walking Lily to the bus stop when my phone rang again. Patricia's number. I declined the call, but a text followed immediately. "We're coming over at noon to talk. This has gone far enough." My hands trembled as I texted back. "Do not come to my house. I will call the police if you show up uninvited." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again before her response came through. "You wouldn't dare." "Try me," I wrote back. After seeing Lily safely onto the school bus, I called the non-emergency police line to report potential unwanted visitors. The officer was sympathetic, especially when I explained the CPS investigation and promised to have a patrol car drive by around noon. At 11:55, true to their word, Robert's SUV pulled into my driveway. I watched through the front window as they marched up to my door. Patricia's face set in determination, Robert's in anger. When they found their key wouldn't work in the new lock, Patricia rang the doorbell repeatedly while Robert pounded on the door. I didn't open it. Instead, I spoke through the video doorbell. "I told you not to come. Please leave my property." "This is ridiculous!" Robert shouted at the camera. "We have a right to see our granddaughter." "Your granddaughter is at school, and you have no right to be on my property after I've asked you to leave. The police have been notified." As if on cue, a patrol car pulled up. The officer approached calmly, speaking to Robert and Patricia while I watched through the window. Robert's face grew redder as he gestured wildly toward my house. Eventually, they got back in their SUV and left with one final glare toward my door. The officer knocked gently. "Miss Harper, they're gone now. Would you like to make a formal statement about the situation?" I invited him in and explained everything: the abandonment, the CPS report, and their showing up despite my explicit request not to come. He took notes and assured me they wouldn't be back today, but suggested I might want to consider a temporary restraining order if the harassment continued. After he left, I sat on my couch, physically and emotionally drained. The site of my surgery throbbed, and I realized I hadn't taken my pain medication that morning amidst all the chaos. My phone rang again. This time, it was Kevin's wife, Amanda. "Tina, what's going on? Mom and Dad just called Kevin in tears, saying the police escorted them away from your house." I sighed. They showed up uninvited after I explicitly told them not to come. The police simply asked them to leave. "Don't you think you're taking this too far?" Amanda asked. "They made a mistake." "But a mistake that endangered my child," I interrupted. "Would you have left your sons alone at 10 years old?" Amanda hesitated. "Well, no, but—" "Then please don't ask me to accept what you wouldn't tolerate for your own children." After hanging up, I logged onto Facebook, and my notifications exploded. Patricia had posted a long, self-pitying rant about being kept from our precious granddaughter and falsely accused of neglect. She tagged several family members who were now commenting with confusion and concern. I felt a wave of nausea as I read her public distortion of the truth. The anger and betrayal burned deep in my chest. But amid the sympathetic comments for Patricia, there were a few questioning ones. "Wait, did you really leave Lily alone while Tina was in the hospital? That doesn't sound right. Weren't you at Kevin's party that night? Was Lily there too?" The truth was starting to slip through the cracks of their carefully spun narrative. A plot twist was unfolding before my eyes, one I hadn't anticipated. The family was beginning to question the version of events they had been fed for so long. 3 days later, Ms. Patterson from CPS sat in my living room, finishing her interview with me while Lily was at school. "Based on our investigation so far, including our conversations with your in-laws, there's sufficient evidence to support your claim of child neglect," she said, reviewing her notes. "Your daughter has confirmed being left alone on 2 occasions, and your in-laws have admitted to leaving her, though they insist it wasn't for long and that she was perfectly safe." The weight of her words landed heavily on me, relief mingling with a sharp spike of anxiety. "What happens now?" "We'll complete our report next week. While this doesn't rise to the level of criminal charges, it will be on record should any future incidents occur." She paused, looking at me with quiet understanding. "Have you considered family counseling? It might help establish boundaries if you plan to allow them back into your lives eventually." I swallowed, the thought of them in our lives again making my stomach twist. "I'm not sure I do," I admitted. "Or at least not in the same way." After she left, I checked my email to find a message from an unfamiliar lawyer. The subject line sent a chill through my bones. "Represent for Robert and Patricia Miller, re-grandparent visitation rights." I felt my hands tremble as I opened it. The letter was formal yet clear. Robert and Patricia had retained counsel to pursue legal visitation rights with Lily. It cited their close and meaningful relationship with their granddaughter and claimed I was alienating them without just cause. Without just cause? I could still feel the sharp pain of my surgical incisions, a constant reminder of the moment my in-laws had chosen a party over my daughter's safety. I forwarded the email to my friend Elaine, a lawyer, asking for her advice. She called me back almost immediately. "First, don't panic," she said, her voice calm and reassuring. "Second, they're overplaying their hand. Grandparents' rights cases are notoriously difficult to win, especially with an active CPS finding of neglect. I'd be happy to represent you if it comes to that." "Thank you," I said, my voice breaking under the weight of it all. "I just don't understand how they've twisted this around so completely. They're acting like they're the victims." "People who can't accept responsibility often flip the narrative," Elaine explained, her tone firm. "But the facts are on your side, Tina." That evening, as Lily and I sat down for dinner, the doorbell rang. I checked the video feed and saw Kevin standing there alone, looking uncomfortable. My heart skipped a beat, a mix of dread and confusion swelling inside me. I hesitated for a moment, then opened the door. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. I let him in, keeping Lily in my sight in the dining room. "I spoke with Amanda's sister," he began, sitting stiffly on the edge of my couch. "She's a child psychologist. She said what Mom and Dad did was absolutely inappropriate and potentially traumatic for Lily." He ran a hand through his hair. "I didn't want to believe they would do something so irresponsible." "I didn't either," I said softly. "That's why I trusted them with her care." Kevin looked genuinely troubled. "I had no idea Lily was alone when they came to my party. They told everyone you'd arranged alternative care, and that's why she wasn't with them." This new revelation stunned me. They lied to the entire family? "I'm afraid so." He looked toward Lily, who was watching us cautiously from the dining room. "May I speak with her? I'd like to apologize for not checking on her myself." I nodded, and Kevin spent a few moments speaking softly with Lily. Gradually, she relaxed as they talked. Before leaving, he turned to me once more. "I've told Mom and Dad to drop the legal threats. Amanda and I won't support them if they continue down this path." His expression was serious. "David wouldn't have stood for this, and neither should we." As I closed the door behind him, a surprising lightness filled me. The family alliance I'd feared was crumbling, but not because of anything I had done. The truth was finally coming to light, and for the first time, I didn't feel alone in this fight. That night, I received a message from Patricia. "We need to talk without lawyers." Yes, it seemed like the next phase of this conflict was about to begin, but for the first time, I felt like I wasn't carrying this burden by myself. 1 week later, I sat across from Robert and Patricia in my living room. Elaine, my attorney friend, sat beside me while their lawyer, a stern-faced man named Mr. Bradshaw, flanked them. Between us on the coffee table was a formal agreement, one that had taken days to negotiate. Patricia hadn't spoken directly to me since entering my home. Her eyes were red-rimmed but defiant. Robert looked older somehow, the once unshakable confidence he carried now noticeably absent. "Let's review the terms one final time," Elaine said professionally. "The Millers acknowledge their lapse in judgment in leaving Lily unattended. They agree to complete 6 sessions of a grandparenting education program and 3 family therapy sessions before resuming unsupervised visits with Lily." Mr. Bradshaw nodded stiffly. "And Miss Harper agrees to dismiss the CPS complaint and permit supervised visitation in the interim, starting with 2 hours twice monthly at neutral locations." "Those are the terms," I confirmed, meeting their eyes directly. "This isn't about punishment, it's about Lily's safety and making sure something like this never happens again." Robert cleared his throat. "We still think this has been blown out of proportion, but we'll sign." As they scrawled their signatures, I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel satisfaction. I only felt relief that the battle was nearing its end and hope that healing could finally begin. After they left, I found Lily sitting on her bed, clutching the photo of David she kept on her nightstand. "Are Grandma and Grandpa mad at me?" she asked in a small, trembling voice. I sat beside her and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "They were never really mad at you, sweetheart. They're sad about the situation, but we're all going to work together to make things better." "Will I see them again?" she asked. "Yes," I assured her. "But things will be a little different for a while. We're setting up some new rules to make sure everyone feels safe and respected." 3 months later, I sat on a bench at the park, watching as Lily showed Robert how to use the tablet she'd gotten for her birthday. Patricia sat nearby, actually listening as Lily explained a game she loved. Kevin and Amanda's sons played on the swings, occasionally calling for Lily to join them. The family therapy sessions had been tough, but necessary. Robert and Patricia had been defensive at first, but the therapist guided us through difficult conversations about boundaries, respect, and the trauma David's death had caused all of us. The grandparenting classes had had an even more profound impact. Patricia had admitted during our last session that they had been raising Lily in the same way they'd raised their sons in the 1980s, emphasizing independence too early and focusing on toughness instead of emotional support. "We were wrong," she had said. the words clearly difficult for her. The world is different now. Children are different, and we need to be different too. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. There were still moments of tension, moments when old patterns nearly resurfaced. But there was progress, real, meaningful progress, and it was benefiting Lily more than anyone else. My phone buzzed with a message from Susan. "How's it going?" I smiled as I replied. "Better than expected. They're actually listening to her." Susan had become part of the extensive support network I'd built around Lily. I had learned my lesson about relying too heavily on any one person. Now, in addition to Robert and Patricia, Lily had Susan, Kevin and Amanda, Elaine, and several other trusted adults in her life. As I watched my daughter laugh at something Robert said, a complex mix of emotions swirled inside me. I didn't feel vindicated, not in the way I once might have imagined. Instead, I felt something far more valuable: peace. I had protected my daughter while still preserving her connection to her father's family. This was what real victory looked like, not in destroying relationships, but in transforming them into something healthier for everyone involved. What do you do when the people who are supposed to support you, protect you, and love your child turn on you in the most devastating way? When the very people you trusted with your daughter's safety betray you? Emily's world turned upside down when her in-laws David's parents abandoned her daughter Lily in the most vulnerable moment of her life. Emily, recovering from surgery, had to trust them to care for Lily. But instead of protecting her, they left her alone at home to attend a family party. That was the moment Emily knew she could never forgive them. It wasn't just the neglect, it was the manipulation and the betrayal of the trust she had extended to them. After making the difficult decision to report them to child services, Emily faced an uphill battle. But as the truth started to emerge, Emily realized the importance of setting firm boundaries, even with family. She refused to let her daughter's safety be compromised again. Despite the threats, the lies, and the emotional manipulation from her in-laws, Emily stood strong. She took control of the situation, ensuring Lily's well-being while still leaving the door open for healing and accountability. So, here's the big question. What would you do if someone you trusted to protect your child chose a party over their safety? Would you fight to protect them, even if it meant losing family? Let's discuss it in the comments. And if you're following Emily's journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.